tax, which means it would be paid in 20. The first payment would be in April 2020. Again, we can't stress enough that these are estimates and things could change. The state does not have, well, here's what, when we're asked to do this, it's fine to rural, and in some other jurisdictions, other states, it gets a little easier because it's treated, it doesn't have this special treatment. With Colorado, this will be the first time an incumbent utility that provides electricity to customers, it also owns a wind generator. We own one under their initial rules, which those rules don't exist anymore. And this is done with some of that process in mind, in the division's process of how they would handle it for public service company. They may continue to handle it that way, and they may come up with a different idea because we are the utility on how to handle this and stay in line with the statute. That's my biggest, just to let you know, that would be one of my bigger concerns that could impact how much tax would come in. However, they still have to comply with the statute. It's just how they go about doing it that could change. And here, this is just a lot of what we've been talking about. The cost to build a gas plant may rise, increasing the potential. They change the factors every year. The value of the transmission line, they could determine that that is reasonably allowed to be different. Again, they have to stick with this, what the statute says. And they could change their process. They have a very complicated, which is not up here, and I don't think today would be a good time to show it. They've got a complicated template that does this analysis. And it really only has a handful of inputs, and then they use Excel's goal seek function to come up with their conversion factor that they would apply to the income. But ultimately, their first step is a big chart that says how much tax in the aggregate would be produced over 20 years if this was some form of gas plant. So I guess that's all we can give on property tax, unless there's some questions.
Good to have a ballpark.
Yeah. Plug in, yeah, 2020.
Yeah. Now, the cost to build a gas plant, would it be expected to rise at inflation, or would you think technology would actually take the price down? Or because politically they're in disfavor that they're not going to be built, period?
I mean, I think this is a very complex question. I think there's a couple of dimensions to it. One is, what do we think is going to happen with the price of generation, and the other is, what do we think is going to happen with how the state structures this? Are they going to keep it on a CT? Are they going to move it to a CC? Are they going to use hydro? What are they going to do? So that's a moving. So we're saying that's moving. In terms of what the market is doing, I think it's volatile. I look at $365 a kW, and in my humble opinion, personal opinion, that seems low. I don't think we could build that for that right now, but we'll find out. As I was mentioning earlier, we are in the process of acquiring resources right now. We're in the middle of a resource plan, and so we will have new comparables here soon, in the next 18 months. New units being planned, RFPs being awarded. In terms of what the technology is doing, I think there's a lot of reports out there about what experts think technologies are going to do. Some say it's going up, some say it's going down. It just depends on who you talk to. Manufacturers clearly say it's going down. Right? People who are opposed to thermal or carbon-based energy saying it's going up. So difficult to answer that.
And I would add that as far as the market, they would look on a national scope at the market. So, you know, the gas plants may be in higher demand in jurisdictions other than Colorado. And that might help drive their price up or keep them stable or whatever, but, you know, they will look at whatever sources they can get. And to the extent we can talk to them about it, we will.
Any more discussion up here? Public discussion, questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Well, thank you for allowing us here, and we'll apologize for our electronic struggles.
Is it worth mentioning, Paul, do we want to talk about the permitting piece that the county is probably going to absorb here, or if they haven't already?
Oh, okay.
So, about the time that we announced we were going to be making the application, your predecessors, this is my understanding, and it was all happening very quickly, passed a new permit fee. And our estimates of that are somewhere in the $5 to $6 million range, pretty early on in the project life. So that's another piece of revenue that I think you would,
And we have received the permit fees for the towers,
it's in the works right now. Okay, great.
the transmission lines are pending.
'Cause that's a big bite, it's not, it's worth it.
Yeah.
We'll be talking about that next time.
So,
Just as a curiosity, I come from the oil industry and built pipelines many times. And one of the things that's always been interesting to me is if you build a pipeline, all of a sudden there's lots of wells along your pipeline because you've got a market. That power line going from in the south corner of Oliver County going basically up to Deer Trail, what do you see for the future along that line?
this line, we held it out there with the commission and with the counties as, this line is a $121.4 million line, goes approximately 90 miles. It is designed for future resource accommodation. It is a 345 kV big line. Our expectation is, just as you said, there's high quality wind resources, really starting about here, going all the way out to the, well, I mean, going all the way to, I don't know, what, Arkansas. So, quite a ways. And I think that there should be an expectation that, that somebody's gonna do something. I can't comment as to whether or not we're planning on something. I can tell you that, as Paul was describing, your project becomes more competitive if your interconnection cost is low, which means I want to be right by the Rush Creek Gentile.
So that begets another question is, most of us that live out on the Eastern Plains there, like I do, have been getting letters from solar developers. Do you see that be clustering around your line also?
Absolutely, I mean, yes, to the extent solar is built here, yes, I think that anywhere where known excess capacity exists, there's a process by which a developer has to go through to identify whether or not they can interconnect and how much they can interconnect. And that's called an open access transmission tariff, large generator interconnection or small generator interconnection process. That is an open and very regimented process. In this case, it's well known because we publicly stated that the Rush Creek Gentile has excess capacity, which would be an understandable, there is clearly a relationship between our statements and those letters.
It's an invitation before your Christmas card.
Yes. And that's, you know, we invited that. I don't know if the people receiving those letters are inviting it, but we held out the line as, you know, going out and penetrating this high quality renewable resource. That was part of the strategy.
Appreciate it.
Any questions?
Questions? Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you for your help. Very good.
here in the middle. Okay.
That's the big part. And that's 99% of the presentation, so.
You want me to convert it to PDF? You could do that.
Yeah, just one more question, and as I think about what we've been saying, if I understood your reluctance to get too involved in stating the methodology, as I think about what each of you have said, the method of calculation of the amount of tax, the process or procedure or the rules, I'm not sure what's the right word, are volatile.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
comparable, the statute is open to interpretation.
Do we
I
get
know
to
it's surprising to everyone, but
Do we get to interpret it?
I think you do. And, you know, I think we all do. The state, yes.
Yes, so, we won't start that until.
That's yours. Yeah, don't forget that.
That's correct.
2019, we won't even actually consider the analysis will take place in 2019.
That's correct. I don't think this is our last discussion like this.
Right.
I think this is ongoing. I think
Yeah,
that
so,
as changes occur, I think that we should get back together.
And the other comment then about volatility, it's not just volatility from the first calculation, it's an annual volatility.
mhm.
I think that's correct.
So that really makes these a draft.
That's exactly that's why I started with this messaging, with that this is really.
But I guess this gives us a sense of magnitude.
Yeah, and I mean, am I characterizing all this right?
Yeah, I was just gonna add that I believe it's probably more than worthwhile that to get on the future calendar, a presentation, and I'll come back, but we'll get Bill Kowalski down from the Division of Property Taxation, and he can kind of firm up what their vision is once they've reviewed everything. And to be fair to Bill, he's only been there a couple of years himself, and he's sort of being forced to dive into this now this year, so.
Good thing.
Thanks again.
Thank you. If we put these on, I think, have a separate draft and everything else, we can propose nothing. So that you know. Agreed? Yeah.
The slide with figures probably ought to have 2020 somewhere.
I think that we're going to, yes, I think, add some things because I can see that. All right, let's go on to the next one. Discussion on plan for the building fees from Rush Creek Energy Project. Rick, how are you?
Rick Pettit, Delaware County Treasurer, and I was just gonna make one comment about what they were showing for taxes. I think that's about what we had estimated, what it would be based on what windmills are presently bringing in the taxes. So that's pretty close to what our estimate was. Okay, regarding the building permit fees for the Rush Creek wind farm, we did receive $4,276,622.
Rick, they can't hear. Can you go up there?
Can you hear me now?
That better? That better?
Can you hear me? Any better?
Okay.
Okay. All right, I'm trying to stay as close as I can. We have received $4,276,622 in building permit fees on the Rush Creek Wind Farm. And my recommendation on how we should handle that money is that we should put $3,349,000 into a stabilization fund to be used for any economic downturns or whatever in the future. 500,000 in the contingency fund. I know the last time we talked about 300,000, but I think 500,000 would be a more realistic number. And $427,662 into the wind inspection fee fund, or line item. These are all line items that would be in the general fund, since it's building permit fees. It is general fund money, cannot be used for road and bridge or anything like that. In order to have some control over this money, some of the trigger points that I've come up with, or want to talk to people about, and Graham had asked for trigger points we put in. Trigger points that I'm recommending is the revenue has to decrease more than 5% from previous year, because hopefully if it decreases 5% or less, that we can manage our budget so that we do not have to go into this money. That the general fund balance has been spent, and that the contingency fund money has been spent before we get into the $3,349,000. That hopefully will offset down the road if the economy goes south like it has in the past. And I know hopefully this would stop some of the where we've had to lay off people, we've cut hours, we've cut services, because the income is not there to offset the loss of revenue, whether it was tax money or building permit fees and things like that.
So what do we need to do to initiate that program?
Okay, in order to initiate it, the stabilization fund and the contingency fund would, since we're setting aside that money, we would have to do a resolution for each one of those line items, stating the amount that we were going to set aside. And if you want the trigger points, we would have to put the trigger points in that resolution so that it's there for future boards or whatever. If they were going to use it and do something different, then essentially they would have to change that resolution. But at least it would give a guideline on how that money is being handled. So the wind inspection fees line item, since that would be in the general budget, would not have to have a resolution, but the other two would, because essentially it's money that's being designated for specific purposes, and it comes out of the day-to-day revenue of the general fund.
And then as far as timing is concerned, would you suggest that we wait until we are in the preparation of the next budget, or should we do this at the next meeting, or what timing should we have for this resolution?
Yeah, I guess, it's up to you when you want to do it, but to me, the quicker we do the resolution to get that money set aside, because we're gonna have to do supplemental or, budget or whatever with that money coming in, because we didn't really budget for it, because we didn't know for sure how much we were getting in.
That's what I hoped you'd say.
Yeah, and we do the resolution now and formalize our building budget and further formalize it. So that's the tower fees. We're also expecting another set of fees coming in from the transmission lines.
Yeah, because he indicated, a total of 5 million and something, total, I think, which was the windmills and the transmission line. We have not received the money in for the transmission line. So at that point, we can address, whether you want to put the money in the stabilization fund, or, how you want to handle that money for sure.
Has there been a calculation made of what that transmission building permit fees would be?
I have not seen or heard anything on the building or permit fees for the transmission line.
Yeah, I know the folks probably that have been working that are outside the room now, but for the stability fund, initially the 3.349, you have a feel for about that
I know, I looked at some numbers from like 2010 to 2016, when the taxes came back to what it was in 2010, and I think we needed about $3 million in just the general fund to maintain the level it was in 2010. So, I mean, it's a significant amount of money if the economy, the tax values go down, the permit fees go down, and other revenues, so it could be significant. The amount of money we would need just to maintain.
And I think that's probably an annual look for ourselves to see, going forward, we have money coming in from production on those, do we continue to build that fund? I mean, I think for everybody, I mean, this is one-time money.
Right.
And coming in against ongoing operational expenses is pretty exhausting. More quickly than we would really anticipate.
Right, and you look at some of the reports, in Denver and stuff like that, I mean, they're talking, the housing market in Colorado being overvalued by 20% or so, so I mean, if, we've had increases in values the last few years with the way the market is, but when it switches the other way and values then go down 20 or 25%, then we're, whatever tax money we're getting in now, we're liable to be back down to the same levels we were, 2016, 2017.
Thank you, sir. Discussion up here? Grant, good?
Look at having a resolution for our next meeting to discuss
That's
those
good.
funds.
Wade?
I already talked about it.
You did, okay,
Definitely work on it.
2 funds? All right. Questions from the public?
Is there any debt that could be retired from?
Sir, you'll have to come up to
Oh, I'm sorry.
Couldn't hear you.
My name is Michael Buck, and separate question, just listening to this set-aside fund, it's a great idea. So when tax revenues are lower, we have an emergency fund, but I was just curious if there is any step that can be retired with that money.
Yeah, we do carry some debt now. The interest rates are extremely low. I'm not saying that's not a good idea or bad idea. It's just right now what we're really focused on was one, establishing a fund for contingencies, which we don't have. As we look at revenues in the budget coming forward, we may be able to accelerate retiring some, also not put us in a position where we have to, we or a future board would have to look at a 3-day work week, some others, ridiculous response.
I was just
No, it's a good question, but liquidity is also very important, and having some liquidity on our balance sheet or in our fund reserve, or however you want to describe it, I think is probably as important as anything, because I got, the history is prologue, and I go back to many years ago when the then current county commissioners had built up a nice reserve. The new commissioners come in and they spent it all paying down the debt. Then we had to turn down in the economy when we had no money. So, yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it's definitely, but we do need to address both.
So-
Get a balance with it.
And I think it was last year, Rick, that you got our debt refinanced?
Yes.
Yeah, and it dropped our interest rate down to, to something that is acceptable. So,
Great job, great job. I didn't
Well,
know.
but
One of the
don't
things-
lose sight of the need for liquidity.
You're right. The other thing is if we have some sort of reserve, it also impacts our credit rating, which will help us in the future possibly refinance or finance something at a better rate. So that's
That's right.
good. So,
Okay, thanks, I appreciate you.
thank you, sir. Any questions? Mr. Brown? Did you have your hand up?
No, sir.
Oh, come on up.
This is a really sensible proposal. My only question is, in terms of the stability fund, is are there policies in place that would allow it to be invested in liquid assets? Or would appropriate amount of liquidity, so that it's just not sitting there. I just don't know the answer to that.
Currently, Rick, if I'm not mistaken, put in call fund.
Yeah,
investment.
in call trust.
Currently, right now, it's in Colo Trust, so it is drawing interest.
It is drawing.
It's not just sitting in our bank account. And we are looking at, possible, financing things, whether it's CDs or bonds or things like that. We haven't had a policy in the past because we haven't had the funds to really invest, so we are looking at that on how we want to proceed. And, whether we want to tie it up in 2-year, 3-year, 4-year bonds, or, how liquid we want to keep it.
Yeah, and there's other options too. I mean,
Right.
you could stage it, like a ladder.
Yes, yeah, that's what I'm talking, whether we do, some of it 2, 3, 4, 5 year. But we're looking at that. We just want to make sure we make the right decision, and if something happened, we didn't have the money tied up.
And the other thing to remember is we can increase yield. If you increase yield, you increase risk. And talking with our treasurer, I think it's, at least I certainly agree that I don't want to sacrifice, for yield, because you do take on a lot more risk.
No, you're right.
And the other thing is, to get a higher yield, often you have to term it out longer, and that takes away your flexibility. So, it's different than an individual making a decision on their own portfolio. This is, we've got to kind of look at it from a low risk, dependable, predictable, we will flow.
Yeah, no, I understand.
As I said, the other policy piece as we pursue that is, what do you do with interest earned? Do you return it to the principal? Do you take it as ongoing income that could be applied to the higher operating levels or higher service levels? So those are all pieces we have to address as we go.
And we're analyzing all of it, trying to figure out what's the best process. And, the other thing we're trying to do, and I've got to give credit to Rick here, is every 2 years, there's a change, there's a possible change in the administration of the county. And what we're trying to do is put this in a long-term, predictable asset.
Yeah, that all makes sense.
Right.
Thank you.
You never told us that before, Rick.
Anyone else? Okay, on to the next one. Elizabeth Parks and Rec. Mr. Barney,
Yes, thank you.
how you doing?
So I'm coming well, thank you. So, Mike Barney with the Elizabeth Park and Recreation District. Thank you for your time today. I just wanted to come and introduce myself and share a little bit of news about this. Something that our board is considering a ballot initiative in November to make you aware of. Certainly not asking for your support or anything like that at this point, but at some point in the future, hope to be able to bring the actual ballot question before you and then maybe ask for your support. But I've been with the Park District for about a year now. We have a new board that's started about the same time, and they hired me to come in and kind of help really move the district forward. It's struggled over the last couple of years for a number of reasons, so we have what we think is a bright future. We're really working on strengthening our foundation, improving the parks. We had a great relationship with the Stampede this year, worked well with them, which I know has been an issue in the past between the district and the Stampede. So we're really happy about the direction that we're going. The district has a bond, a debt service that is expiring in 2018, and so they are contemplating right now, strongly considering a ballot initiative for November to ask the community to ask voters to continue that mill levy to pay the bond, although transfer it so that it could be used to support operations. And that mill levy is a 1.676 mill levy that will be asking voters to continue so that it could be used to support operations. Again, rather than pay for that debt which is expiring. That debt was originally issued to develop Evans Park, and then it would be financed, I believe, in 2005. And so this is the last payment in 2018. We hope to use that those continue that continued funding for improving the maintenance of the parks. We've done some surveying of our users in the community and found that they really want the parks to be maintained at a higher level. So we want to be focused on that. We're certainly working on that now. They're looking for potentially expanded programming options for youth, adults, and seniors in the community, and so we want to be responsive to that. Then we also see that people, some residents are asking for new and enhanced amenities, and so we want to be focused on that. It's not necessarily recreation centers and large events, but just little slight improvements that can make the parks better and improve the quality of life for residents. We're going to batting cage, for example, this summer at Evans Park. So there's a lot of little things we can do, and so that's what those funds can be used for. It's not a huge amount of money, but for us, it will allow us to continue to head on that path of improving services, improving the parks, and most importantly, the service that we provide to the community and helping enhance their lives. So, again, I hope to come back to you all in a couple months with the actual ballot language so that you can have a chance to review that and then ask for you to consider supporting us in the November election. Thank you for your time.
Can I have, if I may, I have just a couple sheets that if I may leave with you, just FAQ kind of on the issue of this great sheet. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner.
And I'm sure you are. Please keep in contact with the clerk.
Yes, absolutely, yeah, we were working with the, yeah, been working with Dallas and Ron, yeah. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Any questions up here? Discussion? Discussion? Anybody? All right, on to the next one. County road discussion. Sean?
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Sean O'Hearn, Consulting Engineer to Elbert County. And I'm here with Monty Hankins of the Department of Public Works, and we're primarily going to talk about a pavement condition assessment that's currently underway. It's an interim report, and also to answer any questions regarding paved roads or gravel roads, anything that commissioners may want to talk about while we're here this morning. First, a little background. The basis of everything, at least a partial basis of everything that the Public Works Department does, starts with in Western Elbert County with the Transportation Master Plan that was prepared and completed in 2007, 2008. At the time, the county's three top issues of concern included funding, road connectivity and network improvement, and improvement of asphalt paved and gravel road surfaces. Over the years, the 10 years now since then, a lot of conversations have both public and private have happened regarding the roads in the county. Right after the master plan was done, the Department of Public Works began a number of things, primarily soliciting and obtaining grants and allocating additional funding for gravel road improvement projects, paving the gravel roads based on priorities that included public health and safety and cost to maintain those roads. Some good examples are the Kiowa Bennett Road, which was financed through a hazard elimination grant, 4 miles of County Road 194, County Road 196, 29, 915, which was finished last year, County Road 45, 17, and 1721. In addition, like Kiowa Bennett Road, County Road 29 also had, I think 50% of that was funded through a DOLA grant that was solicited and obtained by Public Works staff. Focusing on assessing the asphalt paved roads in the county, right after the master plan was completed, Public Works instituted a pavement condition index assessment that utilizes a standard testing procedure called D6433, and that's titled Standard practice for roads and parking lots, pavement condition index survey. So I'll say PCI, that's pavement condition index survey. You'll hear that acronym, that's what it is. The first PCI assessment was conducted in 2009 and 2010, and this assessment included 115 miles of asphalt paved residential roads and another 70 miles of county roads. Since that time, another 24 miles of paved roads have been added, the transition from gravel to paved, primarily the roads I listed earlier. Based in part on the first PCI assessment, Public Works refined its pavement maintenance program to focus on 3 primary things: patching, crack sealing, and shouldering. Over the course of the last 7 years, that program has been in place, and we started the second PCI assessment in April, and the residential subdivision roads have been completed, and the remainder of the roads, the county roads, are scheduled to be completed this summer. So what is ASTM D6433? Probably 3 important takeaways. What is it? The Pavement Condition Index rates the condition of a surface of a road network. The PCI provides a numerical rating for the condition of road segments within the road network, where 0 is the worst possible and 100 is the best. That's important as we go through these slides. Keeping in mind the scale, it's kind of like a test. You get a 0, you didn't study hard enough, or you didn't work hard enough, and 100 is pretty good. We're somewhere in the middle. What does the PCI measure? It's 2 conditions: the type and extent and severity of pavement surface distresses, and they're typically cracks and rutting, as well as subgrade conditions, and the smoothness of the ride and comfort of the road, sort of a subjective measurement. How do you do it? The PCI is subjective, and it's evaluated based on inspection and observations that's quantified. In the case of the 2017 assessment, the county, through this project, purchased the PAVER program, and that's a program that's administered through CSU, and it's an electronic version of what we did in 2010 by hand. So it's something that going forward will be easy for the county to do, maybe year over year or every 2 years as opposed to every 7 years. The county owns the PAVER program as part of the project, as well as the computer that is that's used in the analysis. PCI index scale, good 100 to 86, satisfactory 85 to 71, fair 70 to 56, poor 55 to 41, very poor 40 to 26, and I'm glad to say there's nothing below. Serious and failed is 25 to 11, and failed 10 to 0. That's at least at this point in the life of the county infrastructure investment, road investment. We're not down there. The different types of pavement that distresses that are quantified are all listed here, and there's a whole bunch of them. The ones that are in red are the ones that are predominant in Elbert County, and they include alligator cracking, block cracking, edge cracking, lane shoulder drop off. That's when you transition from the gravel surface or the paved surface to the gravel surface. Longitudinal and transverse cracking, probably the most prevalent crack in county roads is that transverse crack. That's the one that goes from one side of the road to the other. Longitudinal is more down the middle. Patching and utility cuts, and weathering surface wear. Weathering is common in all Front Range communities. It's basically what the sun does to pavement after it's been placed. In 2010, the survey was conducted, and really probably the takeaway, there's a map on the side that shows the county roads and all of the subdivisions, but the takeaway is probably the Cimarron subdivision had poor roads, Stage Run had poor roads, and then the county focused on poor and fair over the course of the last several years. Overland, Outback Estates, Southern Hills, Deer Creek Farms, those are all subdivisions that what this assessment allowed us to do was to look at the roads within all of the subdivisions and prioritize the, like I mentioned, the patching, the crack sealing, and the shouldering. 2010, or 2017 rather, there's some good and bad, I guess, in this. The good is that some of the subdivisions that scored, I'll go back, let's take Overland as an example. Although there's not many roads, Overland had a 73 in 2010, and in 2017, it has an 89. And that's primarily because of the work that Public Works has done to maintain that road. In other cases, Wild Point is a good example where the roads were newer in 2010, but they had been, there hadn't been a lot of traffic out there from 2008 until just a few years ago when houses started to be built again. When roads aren't driven on, it's a flexible surface. It tends to dry and become more rigid. Wild Point went from a 91 to an 82. And I'm going to briefly just go through each of the subdivisions and point out what the data that the Public Works Department now has to work with based on this analysis. Using Amanda Pines, 2010, 78, 2017, 80, that's primarily due to the crack sealing that's gone on there. But the other important takeaway from this is there are, rather than looking at the subdivision in total, you can look at North Pine, Scotch Pine, and Fraser Fir and say, well, those are the roads with regard to that particular subdivision that that need to be looked at a little bit more closely. Brittany Ridge went from 91 to 83. That's a concern because the drop basically says that if you continue to just do the crack sealing and the shouldering, chances are that number will continue to decrease. Cimarron went from 49 to 67, and that's primarily because of the work that's been done on a regular basis over the course of the last 7 years. It's not great, but what it shows is that the county's investment into that paved surface is not devaluing at a rate that would require extra funding to, other than what's being done right now to maintain. Coyote Hills, 82 to 77, basically what you would expect over the course of a 7-year period. Degradation, but not to the point where it should be a concern, at least at this point. Deer Creek Farms, 81 to 83. Pretty good. It shows that the county's program for maintenance is doing what it should be doing there. Deer Creek Farms, 68 to 62, you can see a lot of red and yellow on that graphic. It's a subdivision that, as you drive through there, you'll realize why, in fact, it needs to have more attention than some of the other residential subdivision roadways. Elkhorn Ranch, 88 to 82, typical degradation. It's one of those subdivisions that probably, like Wild Point, needs to have attention paid on a more regular basis, even though the numbers are still satisfactory. There's the house building that's going on there now means more heavy traffic, cement trucks, material trucks, and that will beat the roads up. And I think that's what, in my opinion, that's what's happening in both Wild Point and Elkhorn Ranch.
Hey, Sean?
Sure.
You're hitting these, I know, when you talked to me a little bit about Elkhorn, where some of these subdivisions were in terms of when the county established road standards and varying pavement grades that might have been used.
Thank you. That's a good question. And prior to 2007, the county road building standards were not consistent. So when you look at the pavement from one subdivision to the next, You'll see different pavement mixes, you'll see different thicknesses of pavement. In particular, in the northwest part of the county, the soils are very sandy, and then there'll be knobs of clay. And sand left untreated will create a transverse crack. Skyrim is a great example of that, where we've got transverse cracks that range from 2 inches to 4 inches wide. That clearly wasn't the right pavement design for that subdivision. Since 2007, all of the roads within subdivisions have been designed in accordance with county standards, and there's a composite section in areas that, for instance, Spring Valley Ranch right now is being built with, I think it's 6 inches of Class 6 aggregate and then 4 inches of asphalt on top of that. That's a much better, road section than most of the subdivisions in the area. But since 2007, it's regulated pretty consistently. All of the roads that have been built prior to 2007, it was sort of anything goes, and I suspect that the developers likely made those decisions without any county input. Meadow Station, 93 to 85, nothing really too concerning. Outback, 58 to 71. Again, what this tells us is that the efforts that the DPW have expended to maintain the quality of the roadways is working in some of these subdivisions. Again, these smaller subdivisions are a little bit of anomalies in that they have one road or two roads, but nonetheless, the takeaway is the mitigation and the funds expended to mitigate road degradation appear to be working. Overland, 73 to 89, another example of likely a patching program and a crack sealing program and a shouldering program that have been effective. Southern Hills, same thing. It's just one road. Actually, this is the road that we paved last year. So this is the road that goes off of 915 to the water tower. Skyrim, good example of, from a pavement assessment standpoint, it's maintained its integrity. The roads have maintained their integrity. There are a couple of yellow areas that are probably need attention over the course of the next couple of years. That's a subdivision where you'll drive down the road and the road surface, the subjective analysis of how does this feel when I drive over it, it doesn't score high because of the transverse cracks, the wider cracks. On the other hand, the transverse crack from a road degradation standpoint is not as significant as anything that's structural, like alligator cracking, degradation that's not just the road surface, but below the surface. Stage Run, subdivision that wasn't very good in 2010 and is right about the same level, something that Public Works has on its radar and is trying to mitigate and possibly improve the conditions based on the current program. Spring Valley Ranch, 86 to 87, things are going. Now that we've got more activity out there, there's a new area that's being built. There's a lot more construction traffic on those roadways, and what we've asked the developer to do is consider an alternate way of getting in and out of that subdivision without impacting county roads. These are county roads that are it's public investment, and decisions like that can go a long way towards keeping that investment whole. We'll likely keep an eye on Spring Valley and Wild Point a little bit more closely over the next 2 years. We may do the paver analysis on a year-over-year basis because those roads are still under warranty, and prior to the roads being finally accepted by the county, we need to make sure we understand if there are any structural issues or surface issues that need to be dealt with before the county accepts them. T&M Ranches, good road, being maintained properly. The last slide is I tried to keep this brief. I enjoy talking about roads, but I know it's not something that's easy to stay awake about, so I appreciate your patience. The takeaway here, it's a summary between the 2010 and 2017, and you can look at this more closely when you have it in front of you, but I see two things that are significant. Cimarron, Deer Creek Farms, and Stage Run are three subdivisions that if the roads aren't maintained, then the quality gets to the point where, you know, actually, if you get down into the lower two categories, the decision really is, do we leave the road as a paved road, or do we convert it back to a gravel road? And Elbert County's not in that position yet, but it's important to keep this type of assessment current to make sure that those decisions, and they're hard decisions, don't have to be made. The other two that are somewhat concerning are what I have in yellow, where we have two fairly recently built subdivisions, Wild Point and Brittany Ridge. A lot of activity, making sure, and the roads are under either initial warranty or going from initial to final. Prior to the county taking responsibility for those roads, the developer will basically build them back to the standard that we expect, which is a new road before the county accepts the roads. So all in all, I think that what we were hoping is just an interim report to you, is that good data was prepared in 2008 that was used to come up with a program to assess the roads. The assessment appears to be doing what it's intended to do, and Public Works to date has really done a good job at taking that data, interpreting it, and coming up with a plan of action. More to follow. I will say this, we'll continue to solicit funding and look at modifying a gravel road and turning it into a paved road like 915 is the latest example. But another thing to keep in mind is when we started this work in 2008, 2009, 2010, there was a lot less traffic in the county. And the challenge, paved roads are easy to build. If they're maintained properly, they'll have a design life of 20 years, plus or minus. Gravel roads, on the other hand, the amount of traffic over gravel roads really dictates how that road is going to degrade over time. And we'd like to talk to you if you have questions about what Monty and the Public Works group is doing with gravel roads right now with regard to adding recycled asphalt. But I just want to leave you with the thought that there's a lot that you can do to gravel roads that may or may not be a good investment. I think what Public Works is doing now is very diligent and thought out in a very good, cost-effective way. Parts of the Northwest County, especially where some of the newer subdivisions are and some that are currently in the pipeline, paving those roads is probably the answer, and in all likelihood it'll be part of subdivision improvement agreements as you negotiate and approve subdivisions. So that's all for talk about payment from me. Thanks for the time. Again, I appreciate your patience. I know this isn't easy, sexy stuff to talk about like wind farm numbers, but I did my best.
Oh,
thank you.
We hardly ever hear anything about roads. Just a quick review. I know glad you started on the subdivisions. You still have you're still looking at the 70 miles of county connectors.
Yes, that's the second part of this. And I also should add, so part of it is the quantitative analysis where the data is collected. The next piece is actually preparing a capital improvement plan that's a roadmap, much like the transportation master plan is, for Public Works to follow. So on a year-over-year basis, the end report that you'll have at the end of the summer will have not only the assessment and the comparison between 2010 and 2017, but also a practical way of moving forward. And, you know, we've talked about crack sealing, patching, and edging. There are other things that make sense. We maintain the county roads by putting a chip seal surface over the top. We can put a slurry seal. We can put a rejuvenate surface over subdivision roads. And the key is the sun is probably, as much as the traffic over the roadways is significant, the sun takes that flexible surface and it makes it rigid over time. So if we can put a slurry or a rejuvenated surface over the top, that will go a long way towards keeping these investments as sound investments and minimizing the amount of effort and funds that need to go in to maintain them to current standards.
Good? Good, good.
Yeah.
John, thank you.
Thank you.
Questions? Comment? No? Okay. Sean, thank you very much. Can we, is this okay if we?
Oh, absolutely.
Close this? All right. Okay, on to the next item. Status of temporary permit process. Ms. Fenner.
Kyle didn't show up.
Absent?
And so that affects this one.